Welcome back. Public schools aren't seeing as big a boost in state funding as they might have wanted. And here to break down what's in this spending plan for CPS and school districts across the state is Samantha Smiley, reporter at Chalkbeat. Samantha Smiley, thanks for being here. All right, so breaking this down, it's about $300 million more for K through 12 schools in the state. How much of that's going to go to CPS? How much of that goes to other schools?
Oh, that's a really good question. I always forget exactly how much goes to CPS. But I do know that CPS is one of those school districts that gets a little bit more money from the state. And we have 850 school districts, so it's a little bit hard to say off the top of my head how much each school district gets. So I'm sorry.
They're going to get a bigger proportionate share because they're just larger than other school districts. But is this following the evidence-based funding formula? Is this or is this less than what school districts thought they might receive?
So, so the evidence-based funding formula is how the state distribute money based on a bunch of different metrics. And so, what state lawmakers proposed or promised in 2017 was that they would always give $350 million towards that formula, and 300 usually goes into like the tier funding, and then 50 million goes into like a property tax relief grant. um, According to ISB, that grant has been paused and will be reevaluated to see if it was actually helping school districts. And 307 million will continue to go to the tier funding. It is not what anybody was hoping for, I believe, in this time. I think that schools are just going to have to grapple with smaller budgets. A lot of local advocates and teacher unions were at least calling for 550 million. They have been for the last couple of years because they acknowledge that, schools don't have enough money, and it's going to take longer than the original deadline that was set in 2017, which was 2027. And as you see, we're in 2025, and it doesn't seem like we're close to adequately funding schools across the state. And so I know a lot of people are pretty much they knew it was going to be a hard budget season, but they also are a bit disappointed about how much that lawmakers did add to the budget.
And certainly Mayor Brandon Johnson is going to be disappointed. He's been calling for $1 billion just for CPS, and clearly here the entire state's only getting another $300 or so million. What about early childhood education? Governor Pritzker's been big on funding early childhood education. What's this budget doing for that?
Yeah, and he's definitely really have been involved in advocating for early childhood for a while. And so what's interesting is this time that a lot of major um, buckets of money that he was like pushing for will not be funded at the level that they were in the previous budget. And so, like, for instance, the Illinois State Board of Education block grant didn't receive 75 million in additional funds this year. Um, Early intervention, which is a program that helps students 0 to 3 who have disabilities, that didn't receive any additional funding. Neither did the home visiting program. The only program that received a big chunk of money was the child care assistance program and the Smart Start workforce grants.
All right, so not as much money as perhaps they were hoping for. And, there's lots of fears that federal education funding cuts from the Trump administration are going to come down the pike. How do you think that's going to impact school funding in districts across the state?
Gosh, this is one question that I keep asking, right? Because we're not talking about little money here when it comes from the federal government. We're talking about billions of dollars that the state get and is distributed to school districts for school districts that serve a large amount of students who are on free or reduced lunch, or who are English learners, or those who are disabled, or those who are experiencing homelessness. And so, any cut in funding is, I don't want to say destabilizing, but it is a really big issue. And it really does harm students who are at the margins already. And so it's something that we'll be watching. We'll also be watching at Chalk Beach, Chicago, what's going to happen with the Federal Department of Education, to see, is it possible to get rid of the entire department? Are we going to see drops in funding for their operations, more cuts in staff, what all will happen is something that we'll be looking into.
And we know Governor Pritzker has planned for about $100 million total across the budget if a bunch of Trump cuts come down the pipeline from the federal government. So that's education and a whole lot more. Samantha Smiley from Chalk Beach, Chicago, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, you bet. And finally tonight, we want this show to be a two-way conversation, so send us your thoughts. Do you like what you see? Don't like what you see? Is there an issue or story you think we need to cover? Let us know. Email us at parisonpolitics@fox.com. That's parisonpolitics@fox.com, or you can always find me on X at PA Schutz. Send me your comments and criticisms, and sometimes I'll respond. And now you can listen to the show anywhere you stream podcasts. New episodes every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We're back tomorrow. See you, everybody.